Good morning and welcome to the Next Gen Planners Big Breakfast Conference Special.
I'm Dan Graham.
And I'm Amanda Watson, and we are here every day during conference week to bring you insights from amazing people in financial planning.
So thank you so much for all of you for joining us on this week's special shows as part of the Global Financial Planning Conference, which is taking place tomorrow and Wednesday. Throughout the show and the week, of course, we want to hear from you guys as well. So please drop a message in the chat to say hello and any comments you've got about today's content and the big topic, which today is financial coaching and well-being.
So kicking us off today, we have three awesome guests. First up, we've got Sarah Newcomb, who is the Director of Behavioural Science at Morningstar. Then we've got Catherine Morgan, who is joining us to chat about financial coaching. And lastly, we've got Tom Morris and Chris Budd from the IFW. So let's get straight into it with our first guest from Morningstar.
Morning, Sarah. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
No, it's an absolute pleasure to have you join us. Where are you actually joining us from as well, Sarah?
I am in central Maine in the U.S. So if you know New York City, you would drive up northeast to the very tip of almost to Canada.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's the first time we've been joined by someone from Maine on this show as well. So it's lovely to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. So you, of course, are part of the Morningstar team, and you guys are supporting us throughout the conference this year. So that's why we've got you on today to chat about today's big topic. And of course, the big topic today, as I've just explained to everyone, is financial coaching and well-being. Now, it's interesting to have you on because I know that this is something that you're very passionate about, and it's something that you've actually written books on as well. So it's lovely to have you on. And I guess the first thing I want to focus on is behavior. Now, behavior is one of the most fascinating kind of things that we talk about in finance. I was actually listening to Morgan Housel's Psychology of Money because, I mean, I've actually never read that book before, which is it's not something that I was looking forward to admitting. But it's a fascinating world, you know, and a lot of the challenges that we face when it comes to money are actually down to behavior. And a lot of the decisions that we make and things like that are all driven by behavior. So big question to start off with. What do you think that financial planners can do? So the people in the audience will be financial planners. What do you think that they can do to help their clients change their behaviors perhaps, or tweak their habits surrounding their money?
Yeah, this is the question that I've been thinking about for years, and I find it endlessly fascinating. And I want to first say, there are ways of explaining, like I caution us from saying, oh, well, we can, change the financial system by changing individual choice. There are ways that financial well-being is affected by our behavior, by our internal choice, and there are also big systemic things. And so both are important and both need solutions. But to the extent that intrapersonal, like there's the external choice environment, and then there's the internal choice environment, the things that you decide for yourself. And so to the extent that you have control over your own financial life, this is one of the biggest things that contribute to well-being financially. And so I've been looking over the last 10 years for really simple, changeable factors of mindset that have been shown to connect in a meaningful way to important financial behaviors, things like rate of saving, things like whether or not, how you invest or what you do with your savings, and spending, right? How we manage our resources, personal resource management, right? So what do we know about the mind and simple and changeable things about our mind? And the reason why I go for simple is because we need to be able to grasp it quickly. And we need to be able to remember it so that we can have some sort of like rule of thumb to go back to. Because if we're trying to change behavior, the more complex, the less likely you are, right, to have. So it's got to be simple and it's got to be changeable. There's a lot of really cool science that talks about personality types and money behaviors and things like that. But I don't find that particularly useful from a coaching or even a personal perspective, because you can't necessarily change your personality. But you can change certain things about the way that you think that might have an outsized effect on the decisions that you make with your money. And so that's the area that fascinates me, is what are the things that really affect not just our bottom line, but our quality of life, our financial well-being, right? So those things, that's what my research focuses on. It's trying to find a couple of simple things that can really contribute to that sense of financial well-being that allows people to actually enjoy what they have. Because another thing that we know is that more money doesn't necessarily lead to more quality of life or more satisfaction, life satisfaction. It's not a one-to-one relationship. And so if we're ignoring the quality of life issue, then we're not really, I think, coaching people toward the ultimate goal, which is peace of mind, a feeling of happiness with your life. That's the goal of financial planning, not X dollars, but a life well lived.
Absolutely.
I know that's a lot, but that's you said I was passionate, and I absolutely am.
No, it's lovely to hear you talk about it, and the fact that you're not even waiting to think about it, because it's almost like it's ingrained in you, and you know exactly what you're thinking, and it's really nice to hear. And one of the kind of key components of good financial coaching, and to a degree good financial well-being as well, is the understanding of values. And I think that's exactly what you mentioned there, that more money doesn't necessarily bring you more happiness, but being aligned with your values and what you really care about does bring you happiness. So over the years, I can imagine that you must have seen some really good questions that can kind of get those values out of people. I'm just wondering if you'd be able to share some of those today, or maybe just one or two really actionable questions that people can ask their clients, financial planners can ask their clients, that really kind of focus on values.
So the thing about values and financial behavior is that I like to think of our values as like through the lens of Maslow's hierarchy. And pretty much everybody's has heard of Maslow's hierarchy. These are the basic human needs, and they go far beyond what's at the base of the pyramid or of the hierarchy. They start with our physical needs for food and shelter and sustaining our physical bodies, and then it goes to our physiological needs, our need for a feeling of security, as if our need for food is going to be met for a little while. And then there's the social needs, our need for connection, for community, for feeling a part of things, and it goes all the way up to self-actualization. And the thing that people don't get taught, I think, about Maslow's hierarchy is that even though it's a hierarchy, that doesn't mean that we only care about the things at the bottom until they're met, and then we care about the things, self-actualization is just as much of a need for human beings to thrive as food is. And even Maslow himself in his original paper talks about, he says, who is to say that love is less important than vitamins? That a person who is deficient or feels deficient at any one of these levels of needs could be said to be unwell, and we know this as people because everything we're doing is trying to get to feeling like we're thriving on all cylinders, and our resources we can use them. We have strategies for taking our resources and meeting those needs. And some of those strategies are financial, right? So we can be meeting our financial needs through shopping, or we can be doing it through, investing. Some people do meet their need for security through hanging on really tight, right? And so I think that where it comes to these values, it's really useful to just know everybody is trying to meet their needs for security and belonging and you can help them to figure out this way they're thinking about it, whether it's really constructive and healthy or not. And you don't have to be a psychologist to do that. So you ask for specific questions, and I want to give you a couple of specific questions, all right? So the first, to make all this big heady stuff practical, the first thing is to, I think, ask people, when you think about your money, when you're thinking about your financial plan, how far ahead do you tend to think and plan? Is it days, weeks, months, years, decades, or generations, right? Financial planners, we learn to think in generations, but most people are thinking a couple of years ahead at most. And you don't realize they're coming in and sitting there in front of you with this really short timeline in their head. And you're trying to talk to them about the big view, and they can't take the big view because that's not what they see. They see, some of them can't see past next week. And so asking them about this mental time horizon, that's question number one. But then what do you do with their answer, right? So let's say they say, I think, a few 6 months ahead, really, I've saved for my 401k, but I really only think 6 months ahead. Well, then the next question would be like, what do you think might be different in your financial life if you started to think a couple of years ahead instead? Or just imagine what you might do differently if you started to think some decades ahead. And one of the biggest jobs, I think, of financial planners as coaches is to help train people to, over time and repetition and conversation, help them see a future that they love, that's realistic, and then you help them use their resources to get there. Now you're a team to help them build their best life, and they're starting to think about what is it I'm building toward, but you help them to think just a little further than they normally do. And then once they've got that and they've got a win, then you push that further and further. So that, I think, is one way that you can really boost people's financial well-being through coaching with just a couple of questions that gets them thinking and gets a conversation starting between you two that turns into like a longer term plan.
Brilliant.
So that's one. I have others, but we only have 10 minutes.
Yeah, I was actually I'm going to bring this interview to a close, but I'm so distraught about doing so because I could listen to you talk on this for hours. And I think
I could talk about this for hours.
I have no doubt.
Clearly.
And I think the kind of main thing about this is that we've got to get you on our podcast. So we'll be chatting to you about that afterwards. But seriously, there's been so much in that short interview there that people can use. So thank you so much, Sarah. If people want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Oh, I think the best way is either LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm at finance_therapy on Twitter.
Cool. There we go. So thank you so much, Sarah. It's been a pleasure chatting with you this morning. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll speak again very soon.
All right. Thanks.
Hello, Amanda. I think that was your bit in the script.
But sorry.
It's fine. It's our first day.
So next up, we've got a monologue from Catherine Morgan from the Money Panel. Take it away, Catherine.
Morning, guys. Hey, good morning. So lovely to be here with you all today. And how interesting and curious that I hadn't watched Sarah's interview there. And yet what I wanted to share with you today is so closely connected. It's almost like the synergy this morning is unfound. So delighted to be here today. And I want to actually start with a little bit of a story. So I was flying into London this morning to meet with my team. And on the plane last night, my plane was delayed, which got me feeling a little bit anxious and a bit tired. And as I got on the plane, as the plane took off, the plane, by the way, barely goes through the clouds. When you fly from Jersey to London, it's like a 35-minute trip. And as the plane went through the clouds never finished. Like, it felt like the plane was stuck in this giant cloud. And I was sitting by the window thinking, when is it going to peak? When's it going to get above the cloud so that the turbulence would stop? And I sat there thinking, oh God, like, what if it doesn't? What if I have to spend the next 35 minutes in this state of anxiety? What would happen if the plane doesn't make its destination? Like, what did I say to the kids last night before I left? Like, all these things were going through my head. And then I realized that I was allowing my feelings and emotions to be very centered on the future, the what ifs, the things that hadn't even happened. And it got me reflecting on what I was going to share with you today around how often we get clients thinking about the future in financial planning. You know, in order to create a plan for the client's future, we have to talk about their future, don't we? But actually, the brain doesn't like thinking about the future. As Sarah alluded to in her presentation there, the brain doesn't like anything that is uncertain. It will always look for evidence to support certainty and keeping you stuck in patterns or habits that feel familiar to us. And so it got me curious to thinking about, well, how could I shift the way that I was feeling in that moment? And how can we shift a client's feelings in that moment when they're feeling worried about money, concerned about, are they going to have enough money to last the rest of their lifetime? Are they able to take risks with their money? Are they able to set up trusts, for example, to pass that money down through future generations? And it got me thinking about the power of reflection and staying in the present moment. So I'm going to share with you a couple of questions in a moment that I would love you to go and invite for your clients to actually answer after your next financial planning session. So these are not questions for you to ask live in your meeting, but more so reflection questions for them to be thinking about, and maybe for you then to explore together in your next session. But I first of all just want to tell you a little bit about the power of now, because when it comes to financial coaching and also financial well-being, there's a strong link between the way that we feel. And the way that we feel about ourselves is really a mirror reflection of the way we feel about money, right? And so living in the future creates a lot of fear for clients. Also, living in the past creates a lot of negative feeling. And it's almost like we want to encourage clients to live a little bit of the past to bring awareness into the present moment. And we want them to explore a glimpse of the future, but actually the only time that's ever really playing out for us in our life is in the present moment, right here, right now, as we sit together in this breakfast environment talking about this subject. That is what time is. Time is in the here and now. And so it's less about living in the past of decisions that our clients have made. It's less about living in a future that is full of uncertainty, but actually getting the client to think about, what is it in the here and now that is important to them? What is it that matters most to them in the here and now? And that may sound like a really obvious reflection, but so many clients don't create time or spaciousness to even really reflect and think about that. But they will experience those emotional shifts, which can give you an insight into the things that really matter to them. So I wanted to share 3 reflection questions with you to help your clients to really focus on the present day, to really help them to step into their feeling of wellness. So hopefully you've got a pen and paper handy. So question number 1. When I look back on this day, what would make me feel good about how I've spent it? I'll just repeat that one again. So when I look back on this day, what would make me feel good about how I've spent it? Now, this is a great question for a few reasons, but the main reason is it gives you a really good indicator of their values around time, something that Sarah was just alluding to there in her presentation. Because actually the way that we value time is often a reflection of our value system. And the way that we spend money in the present day is often a reflection of what we're seeking more of. So that question there, what would make me feel good about how I've spent my day? Maybe there are elements of the day that we would like to have more of. For example, I had a 45-minute dog walk on the beach this morning. I'd like to have more of that. Why? Because it creates a feeling of spaciousness, of stillness, of beauty, looking out at the ocean. So that's the first question. And it might be in there that there's some things that they want to get rid of. You know, what are the things that they didn't like about how they spent their day? So it's a really good indicator, that one. The second question then is, what money belief do I need to let go of that is stopping me from feeling grateful in the present moment? So I'm going to say that one again. What money belief do I need to let go of that is stopping me from feeling grateful? And when I talk about feeling grateful there, I'm talking about feeling grateful for the present moment. What money belief do I need to let go of? There may be 3 or 4 different money beliefs that we heard growing up around money that are stopping us from feeling grateful. For example, maybe the belief is, I have to work hard to make money. That was one of my biggest ones. I observed it in my father and my mum actually growing up. And so my belief was, I have to work hard to make money. So therefore, for me to take time out of my business is really difficult, because the belief there is that, but I'm not worthy to do that. I'm not good enough to do that. It's okay for other people to do it, but then people will think I'm lazy if I'm not working hard every single day. So that's the belief that I need to let go. So what money belief do I need to let go of that is stopping me from feeling grateful? And then the final question, what areas of my life do I find myself wanting to accelerate, and which areas to slow down? I want you to imagine that you're in a car. What areas of your life do you find yourself wanting to accelerate around, and which areas to slow down? And this is super insightful because it gives you an indication as to what does the client want more of and what do they want less of. And the great thing about this is it doesn't have to be around money. It could be that they want more focus on their health because they know they're not drinking enough, they're not exercising enough, they're not feeling good about themselves. And what happens is if we can create positive momentum in one area of our lives, we can piggyback off the energy to then create more positive shifts, little 1% shifts in other areas of our life, including our relationship with money. So I hope you found those questions useful. Please feel free to drop me a message if you want those questions. I can send those to you. Have a little play with them yourself first, and then you can just type them out on a piece of paper and give them to your client as reflection questions after your next financial planning meeting.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And you're joining us from a hotel room and you've just given us all that value. It's absolutely incredible. Thank you so much, Catherine. That's 5 questions that we've had from our wonderful guests this morning. So you can't say that you haven't got anything to go away with this morning. Thank you so much for that, Catherine. It's been a pleasure having you on and seeing you as always. And we'll be sure to speak very, very soon. Thanks, Catherine.
You're welcome.
Where we are in the script. Okay, so let me do this.
Okay, so now it's time for our big breakfast, big topic. And today we're talking about financial coaching and well-being. So joining us to kick off this segment, we have Tom and Chris from the IFW. How are you doing this morning, guys?
Yeah, good. I've got coffee in hand. Those who know me, this is quite an ordeal for me to get out and get going. No, all good, thanks.
Excellent. Good to hear. And Chris, how are you doing?
Good morning. All good. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
So Tom, we'll start with you there, mate. I think as Amanda just mentioned there, our big topic for today's show is financial coaching and well-being. Now, obviously, they are 2 very separate things. And we just want to make that very, very clear for the audience as well to think about them separately. But financial well-being in special is something that you guys at Innovation really focus on. And that's why you were instrumental in launching the Initiative for Financial Wellbeing, or people know it as the IFW. So how far do you think that we've come as not only profession, but as society in taking financial well-being seriously?
Quite far so far. If I look back to when I joined Innovation back in 2015, and Chris was in the throes of writing his book, or proceeds to go to a local cancer charity. And if you Google financial well-being, it wasn't really something that was in the zeitgeist. It wasn't really being talked about much in the UK in particular, but that is definitely built. And I've definitely seen more and more people using the phrase financial well-being. But I would say that it's very much focused on one part of what I see well-being as. So if you Google well-being, the definition is the state of feeling comfortable, healthy, and happy. And I think there's definitely a focus on the comfortable and healthy part. And we definitely address this in the IFW. We think about budgeting, debt management, protection planning, making sure you got enough money and putting something away for the future. It's all very much in that getting your healthy finances sorted. But what I'm not seeing a big shift to yet, we certainly are in the IFW, and we've obviously got a really good number of members who are pushing this forward, is the happy part. How can we actually use our money? And it was had this conversation in the previous two guests. How can we use our money to make us actually happier and make a real difference? I think we got quite a bit to go yet.
Great. So Chris, what practical steps can financial planners take to introduce financial well-being into their meetings with clients in particular?
There's about 2 hours worth of answers to this, Amanda. But just to give a couple of tips, there's been a lot of talk, some brilliant stuff from Sarah and Catherine about good questions to ask people. But I've got perhaps a different angle, maybe a complementary angle, which is not to talk about money at all, because the whole point about financial well-being is how money can be used to help us to be happier. How are we currently using our wealth? And if you ask a question, quite a common question I've heard a lot these days is to ask a client, what's your relationship with money like? The trouble is that you're just getting the client to talk about money. So ask them about their lives rather than about money. Obviously, the relationship to money. So this is the difference between financial well-being and financial coaching, you might say. Financial coaching focuses on the relationship to money, and that's really cool and it's important. But financial well-being is much more about living a life of meaning and purpose and of joy, and therefore have a conversation about that kind of stuff. The other tip that I would give, really big tip, I think the most underused skill or tool that financial advisors have is silence. Ask a question and then shut up. Don't speak again. Even when the client answers, still don't speak, because the next answer they give you will be a much more in-depth and interesting answer. So just try not talking for a bit.
Definitely agree with that. We're doing really well at keeping quiet this morning, aren't we, Amanda? So I think we're doing well. We're not financial planners though. So Tom, because we're thinking big picture here, it's a big topic, big picture. And if we think of a society that is, maybe not 100%, but we would call financially well, what do you think that looks like? What does that look like in a utopian world?
Oh, now we could get going.
It's a big question, isn't it?
It is a big question. I think if I go back to that healthy and happy point, I think for a well country, it is having a nation who are informed about their financial situation and have it in order as best as they can. And that's going to be very different for different people. But I think about from where we're sitting as financial planners is that we're very fortunate that we tend to deal with, I say fortunate, with this, we've got some power here that we can really make a difference, that we tend to deal with those that are more on the affluent end of society. And we can really, people who largely have enough or are getting to that point. So how can we really help people use their money to be happier? Well, there's a lot of research to suggest that getting involved with local community or charities, and also social connections, using your resources to build those areas. Now, if we imagine a financial planner has 100 clients and we, in this country, 20,000 financial advisors, you imagine the amount of people we can get engaging their finances with society, with those social interactions, with the community, the actual impact we can make. So you've got not only a nation of people who've got their finances in order, but those that can afford it really driving forward some positive change. And it's not purely altruistic, that there is some boost for that individual doing that as well. So that's the utopia for me.
Great. Thanks, Tom. So Chris, what are you guys hoping to achieve with the IFW?
Well, the first thing we hope to achieve that everyone on this call will join. That would be good. If you just Google Initiative for Financial Wellbeing, it's a similar sort of organisation to Next Gen in terms of cost. We're a not-for-profit organisation. That's really important to say. We're a meeting place for like-minded people. I have one very small ambition. I just want to make the world a happier place. But specifically by getting the financial service industry and the financial advisor planning profession to focus on the client's well-being, not on their money. So rather than talking to clients about their investment performance, which frankly they don't care about, that's why they've come to you in the first place. So they never have to think about it again. So talk to them about their happiness, and we hopefully will get a lot of people who have more money than maybe they need to recognize what they can do with that excess money to be happy.
Amazing.
So let's bring in Catherine. Thank you so much for that, guys, by the way. That was a really, really good interview. Let's bring in Catherine for the final part of today's show. So that has been the first show of The Big Breakfast. We hope you guys have enjoyed it. We'll be back this afternoon with 3 more awesome guests from the financial services profession to talk about our big topic today, which is financial coaching and well-being. And then we'll also be back tomorrow with the big topic of financial planning as well, which is a huge topic. So we look forward to some awesome guests on there. Amanda, any last words?
Nope, nothing from me. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much to Catherine, to you, Tom, to you, Chris, and of course to you, Amanda. And
Dan, can I do a shameless plug? Because I'm here, so why not? We talked about a meeting point in the IFW, and it's been shared with members already. If you're a Next Gen member, there is a link. We have our conference in Bristol next week, and there are a few spots left. So feel free to come along and engage in these conversations. Sorry, Dan, but I thought it had to be done. That's
okay. We can finish the show with a plug. That's no problem at all. Well, thank you so much to everyone. Thank you to the audience for watching. We'll be back at 4:30 this afternoon. Please don't miss it. We'll see you all very soon. Have a good day. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.